Is it time for us to give some flowers to Mr. Tom Ricketts, owner of the Chicago Cubs? We're talking about that right now here on the Setup Man podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you all had a great weekend. Hope you're getting a great start to your week. And I have a very special guest that we haven't seen in about a year and a half. Sheff, what's up, man?
What's up, dude? I need an intro like you have. That's a nice one. I like that.
Got it made online. We were
I
just
like
talking about
it.
that.
You give a nice little headline and then lead in
Yeah,
with some nice graphics. I like it.
it
Very well
works.
done.
It works. It works. Guys, this is Sheffield Shuffler on Instagram and Twitter. If you have not, well, X, I guess. If you have not followed him, you really need to. And along the way, if you have not subscribed to us, make sure you're doing the same. Like this video, comment. We had another episode, like I said, back, I think it was like early 2024. And you gave a little bit of information on your story. You used to live in Wrigley and you used to, your story of why you're the Sheffield Shuffler can be found at a different video. And I'm going to let people find that. But today, you and I were kind of talking about we need to do another episode, but what was the topic? And we got to kind of talking. And I think it's time to have the conversation, right? Does Tom Ricketts deserve some flowers? And if you asked me this 3 weeks ago, man, with, no Bregman, no Edward Cabrera on the team, I would say no. I would say we're on our way to an F- offseason. But now, I mean, this has been a fun offseason, potentially even more going on. But where are you at on all this?
Yeah, I mean, you signed one of the biggest free agents this offseason in Alex Bregman, right? You can argue whether it's too much money. It's not your money, so who cares? But they're acting like a big market team. They went and got one of the biggest free agents. You got a third base. Now you have a little bit of question mark with what you're going to do with Shaw. But it's great. You got a top tier pitcher in Cabrera. So seeing the Cubs spending money like they should, because they should be playing like with all the other big boys, is it's a good feeling. And I think fans just have to understand there's only so much you can do every offseason, right? I think fans would be like, oh, let's go get this guy. Let's go get this guy. There's 30 teams and there's only so much money. So there's only so much you can do every offseason. But like you said, like those are good additions. You got to be happy with that. A little question to why they let Brad Keller go and he came over to the Phillies. So it was like a win-win for me. I'm like, oh, nice. All right, he goes from the Cubs to the Phillies. But yeah, you gotta be at least satisfied with what they've done.
A lot of fans still are going to be out there and they're going to say, it's to me, like I'm not saying I was ever in this boat, but I was thinking for a while there with Ricketts, like how do you get him out of this mediocrity and get him back into the mindset of 2015 through 2018 when they were the number 1 through number 5 top spending team in the league? Whereas since then, basically 2018 on, they've been not even top 10. And a lot of fans, right, like boycott Wrigley. And my first thought is like, how do you boycott Wrigley? It's such an amazing experience. Even if the Cubs don't win that day, like going to Wrigleyville, getting the experience, it's so much different than when I was 15 years old and there was Murphy's and that was it. Right. You lived there for a while. You lived in Wrigleyville. Talk about, just that being part of where your judgment lies with how Tom Ricketts has made his mark on this team.
So I think first off, you have to understand the business of baseball, right? Baseball is a business. There are teams who are trying to actively win, and there are teams who use this as passive income. Those are the owners. There's two boats. You're either in one or the other. You're trying to win rings or you're trying to bring in revenue, and that's it. And you need to understand the team that you root for, which bucket they fall in. The Cubs haven't won in 108 years up until 2016. After they got that ring,
Yeah.
monkey off your back. You bought the Ricketts, the Cubs ownership, a lot of time with that ring. They just had the 10-year reunion. We can live in nostalgia. That's going to bring fans in. That's going to get them involved. you bought a lot of time once they got that ring in 2016, in my mind. We went 108 years without one. Now we got one. Whew, we can kind of breathe a little bit. Wow, we got one. We can always kind of fall back. Oh, remember 2016, the Wednesday in Cleveland, best game ever. So I think that was a little bit of that period where it's like, all right, we're trying to win a couple after 2016 all the way to 18. And then, all right, we kind of got to reorganize and see how we're going to move forward without spending so much money every single year while putting a competitive team on the field. And this is what I was going to say. The Cubs don't have to necessarily put a great product on the field because 44,000 people are still going to come out to Wrigley and have fun and drink beers and spend money and buy merchandise, regardless of what product is on the field. That's like ingrained in Chicago Cubs fandom. Regardless of what is on the field, there's still going to be 44,000 there rooting, having fun, partying because of the atmosphere that they built. It's a lot different now from when I was there, right? Like I was telling you, when I lived there from 2012 to 2015, it was Wrigleyville. There was diners, there was bars, restaurants where your feet stuck to the ground because there's spilt beer everywhere. Now it is Wrigley World. It is a corporate monstrosity, and there's the video scoreboard and Gallagher Way, which is beautiful, and $1 billion Zachary Hotel, and Dave and Buster's, and all this kind of crazy stuff. But that is an investment in your organization as much as you want to think it's not on the field. They have created a culture and an environment and a destination for people to come. Now they have that's DraftKings Sportsbook. They have created such a cool atmosphere that regardless of how well a team's doing, it is still a fun, cool place to come hang out. Does that make sense?
It does. Do you think that that's a good enough reason up until this offseason where they have essentially eclipsed the luxury tax threshold to use the luxury tax threshold as the invisible salary cap to not go over? Because that's essentially what it's been like since 2019, right? They haven't exceeded intentionally that luxury tax threshold until this year in quite some time. So again, do you think that's a good excuse for that, just because it's a good experience for fans to not have the best product on the field?
I think the excuse is belief in the front office that this is a team that has the ability to go deep in the playoffs. I think you need to have that belief first before you say we're going to invest going over this luxury threshold and getting taxed, out the butt. I need to believe in this team first. And I think they were a little bit young before, and even like last year's and the years before their trade deadline, when nothing really happened, put belief in me that says they don't believe in this team yet. The moves that they made, right? 2016 when they got Aroldis Chapman, right? And they got rid of Glaber. Who was it? Glaber Torres was involved in that deal as well. That showed me, like, after the 2015 season, like, this is our window. We may not have known now, but our window is open. Like, we need to take full advantage. And that's why I'm able to give one of our top prospects away for a closer, because we need that right now. So I think the most important thing, or what it comes down to, is the front office having belief in the guys in the clubhouse that say, hey, this is the team that could go deep. I'm willing to invest right now to make that happen. Do you have the same belief as to why those decisions are made?
Yeah, I actually just had David Kaplan on the show last week.
And nice.
And I asked him that same question, because I was like, listen, you have 2023, this team exceeds expectations, nearly makes the playoffs. Going into 24, you expected them to make some moves, and they did. They got Bush, they got Shota, but it wasn't really like an all-in type of offseason. But then they had another 83-win season. And you're like, okay, maybe this is going to be the offseason. They get Kyle Tucker. Okay, this is it. In fact, before that, right, in 24, they got Craig Counsell. Okay, this is it. This is the all-in season, right? They had these moves of like, oh, it's all in. Now you don't get
the most expensive manager.
Yeah, you don't go spend $8 million a year on Craig Counsell. You don't go get Kyle Tucker and get rid of Cody Bellinger unless you're going all in. And it just like seemed like they got to that gate, and then they lightly knocked on the gate and then just kind of backed away when no one answered, right? And it wasn't like, let's barge through. And he basically was shared the same frustration, but also was like, hey, when you have at the trade deadline last year, the Nationals asking for Matt Shaw, Cade Horton, and Jackson Wiggins for Mackenzie Gore, you're not going to do that deal. And it's like, wow, okay, I didn't know that. And that was pretty interesting. But again, I just kind of went back to like, but the spending is what's interesting. And for him, he was pretty much just like, I mean, it's the right time. Like they do believe that now this is the time to invest in the team, plus the CBA, plus all the money coming off the books. I think it was just the perfect storm. It's not just one thing, but it's the perfect storm. And, I guess, you talk about a lot, and you're also a part of a fandom with the Phillies where it's just like, money is not really an issue. Even when money is an issue, it's still not an issue. And you've got the Phillies, you got the Mets, you got the Dodgers, you got the Yankees that all fall in that bucket. And Cubs fans argue that we should be in that bucket too. And I got to be honest, like, I don't disagree. When you see that your team is valued at $4.22 billion, but you're out there saying, oh, we're just trying to break even. And then Alex Bregman is on ready to become a Cub going into the 2025 season after you got Tucker, and you come up a little bit short on the offer when that was really the missing piece. Yeah, it gets frustrating. So for me, you mentioned it being a breath of or a sigh of relief that they won the 2016 team or the World Series. It's a sigh of relief for me that we're actually spending money. And yeah, I mean, if they win this year, if they even get to the World Series, that's when I think I'll be giving Tom his flowers, because it means that they probably did something even more impactful at the deadline as well.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? Is kind of adding those fringe pieces after you've played an entire season to know, hey, this is our weak spot. This is what we need to add in order to go deep into the playoffs. But I mean, yeah, the Brewers are still there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Brewers are, I hate the Brewers, but I got to give them so much credit. Two off seasons ago, let's get rid of our ace. Corbin Burns leaves. What did they do the season after that? Now let Freddie Peralta go. Like it's like unconventional. But it's crazy how well they play in a small market with their payroll. So you could just kind of got to give them their props for that. Unfortunately, but yeah.
Do you think this is an interesting conversation? Do you think there's a level, right? Because if the Brewers had Nico Hoerner, they would be trading him already, right? That's been the conversation this entire offseason, right? Is Nico Hoerner going to get traded now that Alex Bregman is on the team? And the answer Cubs fans have is he's way too valuable to get traded. And in the Brewers' minds, he's way too valuable to hold on to, right? Mm-hmm. Like Freddie Peralta is one of the best pitchers in baseball, especially in his own division. And they look and they say that, well, we only have 1 year left, so we need to cash in on that now. Is there a balance that you think, being a Phillies and Cubs fan and also looking at, I would say more so the Yankees, the Dodgers do a really good job of making the right trades, but the Yankees never seem to really make the right moves. They always seem to they have to replenish their team through money, not really through their farm system most of the time. Do you think there is something to that Brewer, that Rays type of organization where it's just like, when these players get too valuable, we really do need to cash in on them right now?
Yeah. If you're looking and saying that the Dodgers are ruining baseball and you have organizations who are willingly giving up their best players or one of their best players because they don't want to pay them, whose fault is that? It's like if you got a beautiful girlfriend, but you don't want to treat her right. I don't want to commit to you. I like playing the field, whatever. And then some handsome guy comes, I will take care of you. I love you so much. And then you blame the guy or the girl for leaving you. And it's like, you didn't value them enough. And if you need to run your organization like that, or you want to, and keep it young and keep player, under team control, and this is too expensive. I mean, that is part of it. I understand you don't want to overpay and give them too many years, because we know long contracts majority of the time don't pay out. And then these guys are getting older in their contracts. It's like, are we really going to give a 32-year-old pitcher who's already had Tommy John surgery or whatever it is? That is definitely part of running, major league organization. But yeah, you can't, if you're sick of being a feeder team to the Dodgers, to whoever, there's a cost to win in Major League Baseball. And if you can't meet it, don't expect to win or don't be an owner. There's a cost of winning. It costs money to be successful. And if you don't want to invest in that, then don't complain. Nobody wants to help people that aren't helping themselves, right? Where did Michael Bush come from? Came from the Dodgers. The Dodgers are very good at developing players. They're very good at drafting. Look at their drafts over the last 10 years. You're like, holy cow, they drafted him. They drafted him. I mean, it's top to bottom. They're running it better than anybody else. So get over it about the money stuff. That's just how I feel. I don't feel bad for losers who are constantly, feel bad for me. Like, what are you doing to help yourself? You have these talented players and then you ship them off because you don't want to pay them because another team will pay them. Don't complain. That's my thought.
I think the conversation is feeling like it's going towards the CBA. So let's just dive straight in. You said, if you say the Dodgers are ruining baseball, you're wrong. I would agree with that. But I got to tell you, when they signed Kyle Tucker for $60 million a year and the dude's never hit over 30 home runs in a season and he looks like a baby deer in the outfield, and most of his stolen bases this last year came in very non-competitive times of the games, and he doesn't hit with runners in scoring position, and you're like, that's just a flex. And there has to be something there that is done in this CBA to not allow that kind of flex to happen, because Kyle Tucker is not. You cannot convince me that Kyle Tucker is a $60 million a year guy, $10 million less than Shohei Ohtani, the best player of our entire generation.
Yes. I am very strong on the stance that I've said, but I understand exactly what you're saying. $60 million a year for a player is ridiculous, right? But I have to be strong on this side because you get so much pushback about, the Dodgers. So I have to push back and be like, no. But what you just said, is he worth that money? No. So don't pay him that. Is he going to be very impactful in the Dodgers lineup? I don't know. He has no pressure on him. He just has to go out there every day. The entire team is going to carry him. So why are you complaining if you said he's not worth that money? That's what someone's willing to pay him. That's fine. But you're not gonna get him because he's not worth that much. So, and I understand the TV deal around the Dodgers. That's where they get so much of their money. The Guggenheim Group just is a fantastic ownership. But also, let's remember, imagine in 10 years if the Cubs started running the table, right? How insulted would you be when people are like, the Cubs are ruining baseball? Like, bro, do you know what I've been through my entire life? Don't talk to me about that. Like, the Dodgers were broke in 2011. They sold their team out of bankruptcy. And I understand it is a very expensive brand, but they were in bankruptcy. They were broke. They were bad. And now that where they are, a competent ownership got them to where they are. So LA is a huge market. Kansas City is never going to compete with LA. New York and Pittsburgh will never be on the same level. It is what it is. It's the market. Baseball is very regional. New York is huge. Chicago is huge. Philly, LA. That's a part of the game. Those are giants. You have to be creative and figure out ways to overcome that, or at least close the gap. Because we know in baseball, there's a lot of parity in baseball. And if you're playing your best ball in October, you can still take out the best. And spending money doesn't guarantee wins. It helps. Top 10, top 12 in payroll, you got to be up there to have a chance, but it doesn't guarantee that you win at all. So that's kind of how how I feel about it. One thing that I said before, sorry if I'm rambling.
You're
Um,
good.
the collect or what was it?
CBA.
No, the amount of money that is distributed at the end of the season,
Yeah.
the revenue share, the
Yeah.
revenue share. So the teams that you brought up, the Brewers, the Guardians, the Rays, teams who take pride in spending or in putting out a good product, even though they don't spend out a lot of money, they're very competitive, very competitive. I feel those teams should have a higher amount of money given to them because they
Sure.
are producing at such a lower payroll, and yet they're still producing. So the teams that aren't trying, that aren't spending money, the Pirates, things like this, give them less of a share from the revenue sharing aspect of baseball. What that will do is create urgency. Well, Bob Nutting, well, I need to make what I made last year, so we gotta spend some money, gotta do this. So I thought that was a creative way to reward teams who are still producing if they aren't able to, kind of meet those financial needs that all these other giants are. And I know it's not like foolproof or whatever, but I just thought that was a good start to incentivize these teams to be competitive.
Mm-hmm. You see this list come out last year, and I can't remember where the Cubs ranked on it, but it was lower third of money spent versus revenue generated. I wonder if that's a good gauge for the CBA, is to say, okay, you're a small market team, Pittsburgh, but we understand why you don't spend money. It's because you don't make money. Unless Paul Skeens is on the mound, no one's coming to the games. And if you spent money, yeah, it might change, but also there just might be a level of Pittsburgh fans just really aren't really going to come out. So even if you spent $100 million this offseason, who's to say you're going to get more than 10,000 people showing up to the games? Do you think that's a potential way that it can be looked at, is rather than, hey, how competitive is your team? It's, hey, how much revenue are you bringing in and what percentage are you spending on that and reinvesting back into your team? Because when the Cubs reinvest $250 million into their team, that's not a dollar for dollar that you can compare to teams like the Rays or the Guardians or the Brewers, because the revenue that the Cubs are bringing in is much higher than those teams typically. Maybe not for the Guardians. They typically fill out the stadium, and the Brewers when they're competitive as well. But you kind of see where I'm going with that?
I do. So if you are pocketing that money as opposed to reinvesting it in your team, yes, I think there should be some kind of stipulation for that, because what is that money for? It is to create a competitive balance. And if you are pocketing that money, you're just taking revenue without reinvesting it. So yes, that is huge. You're getting this money for competitive balance, and you're choosing not to compete. So how long can we use that excuse for? Is like, oh, well, we're Pittsburgh. We don't have any money, blah, blah, blah. There are other ways to get better. How well are you drafting? How long are you going to go without having prosperous prospects or people that you can, bring up through your system? How well are you doing that? The last 15 years, you're not doing it well. Something needs to change. Why aren't people coming out to spend money? Well, we're on the south side of Chicago, and our stadium is a dump, and there's nothing around the stadium for people to come and hang out and watch the game, or even come to the game and then hang out after and buy merchandise and stuff like that. So those are the things, like I was saying about the Guggenheim Group. They draft better, they develop better, they have an experience that they choose to be the premier sporting event in Los Angeles. And everybody's there, all the celebrities. We're going to the Dodgers game. We're going to, Chavez Ravine. They made it an experience. You have Roberto Clemente. You have one of the most beautiful stadiums in Pittsburgh. You can't create something. It's what I was saying is like the culture. Like you've built nothing. Why would I want to go to Kansas City? What is in Kansas City for me to be excited about? Do they have a young core? Great. Do they spend money? Is there a cool experience? Is there this other stuff that you need to close the gap? You can't just say, well, we can't spend as much money as the Dodgers, so we're not going to do anything. I mean, that's the whole point of Moneyball, right? Moneyball was, we need to look at this differently. There's 10 pounds of crap, and then there's us. So how do we get there? We need to recreate him in the aggregate. We need to find players that are going to make up these statistics to replace this player that we can't afford. You have to be creative. If you're the underdog, you got to find other ways. That's just how I look at it. I don't feel bad for any of these owners, any of these fan bases, because a lot of them aren't trying to win. The Colorado Rockies, you're in the mountains. Everyone can hit home runs there. Like, why aren't you investing in this? Like, why don't you? I don't know. Does that make sense? It's a little bit of a
does.
rant, but
No, it does. And what you said is, I think, exactly the core of why Cubs fans have been really upset with Tom Ricketts up until this offseason. That is, if you are making the money and not reinvesting it back in the team, and you're one of the lowest on the totem pole for revenue generated versus revenue spent percentage-wise, that's where you get frustrated. And you hear him go on local radio station and say, we're just trying to break even. It's like, dude, how stupid do you think we are? Like,
yeah.
Okay, like if you're just trying to break even and you're bringing in all that revenue, then how do the other 25 teams survive? Because you're the Chicago freaking Cubs. But with that being said, I mean, I think where I want to kind of end this is, you're a big football fan. You already named earlier, like, hey, New York is or the Dodgers are always going to outcompete Kansas City. Well, look at salary caps and other sports. Look at what the Chiefs outside of this year have done for a while now, being not a large market team in football. Do you think a salary cap is the answer
for baseball?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that will change cheap owners from being cheap. I think you are capping players at saying, this is what you're worth. This is, you're not worth more than that. I have a hard time telling players what they're worth because it's what the market says, right? Do I think this microphone should be $500? No, but if podcast equipment went up, that's the entry fee. That's the entry fee to do this. That's it. It is what it is. It's just going to cap the players from making what they should or what they could be making. It's not going to incentivize cheap owners from being cheap. You're handcuffing the teams that are willing to pay, that are investing money, that are trying to grow the game because the game needs parity. It needs competition. Those cheap owners are just like, oh, thanks, man. You're doing me a solid. Now they can only pay this much. You think Bob Nutting's going to go out there and be like, whoa, look at us now. Now we can do it, guys. Like, let's go spend some money. Like, no, you're a cheap owner. You're the Rockies. You're the Pirates. You guys don't spend money, regardless if there's a cap or not. I don't think.
Is it a salary floor then? Would that be an answer?
I believe more so than a cap, a floor. You need to spend. This is a business. If you're not in it to win, what are you doing? You're using it as another revenue stream. These guys treat it like a restaurant. We're getting money in. How much we got out? All right, put more in my pocket, more in my pocket. They don't care about. That's why there's not a passionate fan base in Colorado. There's not a passionate fan base, in some of these cities. We invest 3 hours, 162 to, 120, whatever it is, how many games that you watch a season, 3 hours a day on a Wednesday in the middle of June when it's 90 degrees outside. I'm watching baseball. I'm watching the Pete Rose documentary last night. Like, I love this game. If you don't care enough about your fans to try and win, I'm not going to be a fan. I put in way too much time watching your product. I will never be a fan of a team that's not trying to win. Call it fair weather, whatever. That's fine. I'm not investing that. It would be so hard to be a fan in Colorado. I love the game of baseball. I could not be a fan. You're not trying to win. You're not putting as much effort as I am. We're here to support you. We're here to spend money. I buy MLB package, MLB TV. I make videos every day about the game. Like, you need to give me something. So back to your point, I think a floor would do a lot more than a cap, and there could be some negotiations on both. And that might be the perfect fit. But my problem is cheap owners being cheap. And I know there's giants like the Dodgers. And it's very hard to get them on the same playing field. but you're never going to. LA, you're not going to compete. You just can't. It's not realistic. It's a huge market, second biggest market in our country. So for me, yeah, I think the floor would help, kind of forcing owners to be like, listen, you've pocketed this money. And then, like you said, looking to see what you reinvested. You got this much from the revenue share and you've invested 12% back into your team. Like, so you're just pocketing that. That's not what this was for. It's like, I made a video about like government assistance. If you need government assistance for a short period of time, that's what it's there for. It's there to help people who are down on their luck, who need help for a short period of time. If you make this your entire life and you live off of this system, that's where we got a problem. It's not, You're not supposed to live on this system. You're not supposed to just pocket this money, put it back on the field. This is you own this team. Sorry. That's just how I feel about
it. You're passionate about this, brother. I appreciate that. All right. Last question. And it's really just a one-word answer. Listen, we're probably not going to have baseball in 2027. A lot of experts are saying that. We're probably going to be seeing a lot of changes to the CBA. I don't know if this ends up being in the CBA, but I do hope it is a change in baseball. We are 2-ish weeks away from spring training, and there's still massive names on the free agents list, like Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen, and others. It's becoming a trend that I do not like in baseball. Seeing Cody Bellinger, seeing oh gosh, what's his name? Snell,
Luis
Blake
Arise
Snell
is still out there.
Yeah, Luis Arise. Yeah, seeing these guys sign in the middle of spring training is incredibly frustrating as a fan. Between 1 to 100% chances that when we do have baseball again in 27 or 28, that there will be a deadline for free agents to sign by in the offseason.
I would say no.
Wow.
I would say no. I think that just handcuffs. I mean, and then look too, Scott Boras, dude. Could we say like maybe he's the problem? I mean, he represents some of the biggest players in our game, so it's like he has so much control. It's not like players and agents. It's like Scott Boras runs the show. These are my players. We're in control. I'll tell you what we're signing. I'm gonna wait. We know what the landscape of the field. We know who you need. I mean, God bless the guy, dude. He gets, hey, they're always going to opt out. We're going back to free agency. We're going to get more money. I understand it's a business, but, yeah, it does stink because the product suffers when you got a guy, especially pitchers or whatever. Of course, they're still doing their own stuff. But to get with the team and kind of get ramped up, if you don't get a full spring training, that's not good. I just don't know if they're going to be in it, for a deadline. The players, they'll feel like they are being forced to sign deals that they could have got more money for or whatever. And Boris, I don't think we'll like that. But of course, I could be way off, but that's what I would think as a player. It's like, you're not going to force me by a day and a time that I need to sign.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, because it's making for really miserable off seasons, in my opinion, over the last few years. But Sheff, man,
there's a couple exciting days. Like there's one day where it was just like bang, bang. And we're like, whoa, look what's like stove is hot.
Well, but you know why? Because there's deadlines, right? I mean, you've got the international signing deadline. You've got guys get posted from Japan. You've got the non-tender deadline. You've got all these deadlines. And I mean, Jed Hoyer said it really well at a CubsCon once. And he's like, if you give people a deadline, they will meet it. Meaning they will either procrastinate to that deadline or they will urgently meet that deadline. And that's where I agree. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just like, give me complete teams by February 1st. I don't want to go into spring training wondering who Max Scherzer or Zach Gallen or Harrison Bader or any of these guys are going to sign with. I just want them on the teams so that they don't have any excuses in the middle of the season to be like, well, I didn't get a full spring training, so I'm really needing an extra month. That one, I mean, JD Martinez signed with the Mets in the middle of spring training, right? Or it was like just before the season started, and we didn't see him until like May that year. It's like, that's not good for anyone there. So anyway,
what happens when, like, when Anthony Rizzo was looking for a team, right? Where's Anthony going to play? The Yankees don't want him back. The deadline happens, and then they go to spring training. Rhys Hoskins blows out his ACL, and the Phillies don't have a first baseman. How does that happen?
Yeah, there's rules and there's exceptions, right? I mean, we have the trade deadline in baseball, but there's still trades made after the trade deadline, right? It's just when you have a deadline and you have some sort of set rules within that deadline and then set rules outside of that deadline. Hey, you got a player that goes down? Yeah, you can bring that guy in. Hey, you got I don't know, you got a bereavement situation. Yeah, go find another guy. Like there are ways that you can make that
like clauses
still possible, but psychologically, people need to be thinking about a date in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
People meaning front office. That's
sure.
where I'm at. Yeah. And Scott Boras.
I mean, it would make it exciting last day, right? I mean, if today was the day, it's like Monday the 26th. Like, we know stuff is happening today. So yeah.
Yep. So anyway, I hope it happens. I hope you're wrong, but I also really enjoyed this conversation, man. Thanks so much. And let's not wait another year and a half to do this. Let's do it more regularly.